This episode is brought to you by Battleborn Batteries, the best name in the RV and marine industry. These lithium batteries are designed and assembled in the USA, backed by a 10-year warranty. The best solution for your battery anxiety, so go check them out at battlebornbatteries.com.
Whether your adventure is on the road, on the water, or off the grid, Battleborn batteries keep you out there longer.
You are listening to Beyond the Wheel, a podcast about the people and ideas that drive the RV community forward.
Hey everyone, today we have the CEO and founder of TAXA Outdoors, Garrett Finney. You may have seen one of their habitats, the cricket or the mantis, out and about. Actually, maybe way out and about. These habitats are like nothing else I have ever seen before, designed with the adventurer in mind. Garrett sits down with us and discusses how working with NASA inspired his designs for TAXA Outdoors and shares how he went from building one prototype to where the company is today. So let's get this episode started.
Hi, Garrett. Welcome to the show. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at TAXA Outdoors?
I can. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. Myself, in the 2-minute-ish elevator pitch is I ended up founding TAXA. I was trained as an architect. I was being an East Coast architect. I sort of fell into a weird, good timing. I had a friend that worked at NASA, and I came down and visited her and got introduced to a lot of people right at the same time that NASA was looking to start a new office. And at that time, since now I'm old, I guess, it was right at the beginning of the space station, and they wanted to hire non-engineers to take a look at what was happening at NASA. So I can go there forever if you want to hear about that. And it's really cool. But right at the time, they knew that a 6-month mission was really different than a up to 2-week mission, which is the switch from a shuttle flight to a space station flight mission. And that had to do, the shortest way to say it is when you arrive in outer space, you have about 16 hours of productive time. And after 6 months, you had about 6 or 8 hours.
Oh, wow.
So where do those hours go? Since that is science time and justifying to Congress time and all these things, where do those hours go? And how is quality of life or alleviation of stress contribute to make that inch up? So they were hiring a few architects, which means I got to call myself a space architect, which is really, which is always really cool. And I always enjoy words and like the irony of like, I was a space architect before on Earth, but now I'm an outer space architect, but concerned about the inner space of astronauts' brains and how they're functioning. And then I grew up being an outdoorsy East Coast backpacker, kind of cursing RVs as the things that I drove behind too slowly on highways. And then I moved to Texas, and it's like, oh, everyone has one. And I have small kids. And in fact, I sort of embarrassingly, like, I want an air conditioner within 3 hours of Houston. And then I thought, but none of the RVs really spoke to me in my lifestyle of being middle-aged athletic and like wanting to go outside and get muddy and dirty because that's the kind of guy I am. And it's like, why is everyone making houses on wheels? Like, where is the athletic aspect of this? And then I thought more and more and more, and then I slippery sloped myself right into a business. I spent a few years before starting my own business drawing some designs and presenting them to other manufacturers. Specifically Airstream, because they have a super long history with NASA and are so iconic and so famous and so cool culturally and in every way. So at first I said, I have a sexy resume. What's the 21st century? So now I know Bob Wheeler pretty well. Over the years, I've invited him to design reviews a long while back when I was a professor, but that doesn't mean it worked out with Airstream.
Yeah.
And I got lots of initial founding. It's like, Garrett, you can't just show people a drawing. They don't get it. And then I also am convinced about that as a designer, that the way I design a house or a habitat, is like, how small can it be and how big does it need to be? And that has a kind of performance aspect around. It's like, because small is aerodynamic and fits in garage, and small is enjoyably efficient and sustainable and arguably green and all these things. But then how big it needs to be, it's like it has to work. It has to work for big people and small people and old people and young people and toddlers who are using as a jungle gym and adults who are trying to drink a bottle of fine wine. I'm a designer at heart, and always I'm a reluctant CEO and wish I could always be designing the next product. Is that so? So a weird trip from architecture to a real refocusing at NASA on small spaces and sort of a hybrid of a habitat with a piece of equipment, and well, how do you make that human and fun and interesting and performative? And then I don't know, I got my first $50,000 from someone and built a prototype and took it to a trade show, and have been chasing my ass ever since.
How long ago was that?
First trade show was like 10 years ago.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Like utterly unprepared to do anything other than drive a trailer that I had never driven before a few thousand miles to Salt Lake City and test all my assumptions. I don't know your background so much, but again, because of my background, I was trying to invent, I'll use the RV world reluctantly for a second, just because we use habitat in a marketing sense. But I went to the outdoor industry annual trade show, which meant, where buyers for REI and Cabela's or whatever go buy the next in apparel and hiking boots and sunglasses and other equipment, because that's me and that's my market. And in my first business plans, it was always like, what is the RV, what's the Venn diagram between the RV industry and the outdoor industry? And the outdoor industry is, I'm not up to date on the current numbers, but it's about 10 times bigger than the RV industry, just in dollars across the board. And it's like, what is that bigger industry that, like, who doesn't want to sleep on the ground anymore for whatever reason? Right. Comfort, safety bears the bad knee you get in middle age. So that's where I introduced my product, and that's where I caught my first press, and that's where I've been, as I said, trying to chase my ass learning to manufacture, which now we like to think we have in hand.
Let me stop you for 1 second, because it sounds like there was a point where you could have taken everything, all your knowledge from NASA. You could have went to Airstream, said, hey, why don't you guys start building something more like this? But you decided, you know what, I can do this on my own. Where did that come from? Why, how did you decide I can do this on my own? I don't want to design this for somebody else.
That is an awkward question, I think.
Okay. Well, you don't have to answer then.
No, I mean, it's funny. Airstream was, in fact, I was talking to them at first, right when they were doing the first iteration of the base camp, which you might remember.
Yep.
Yes.
So for them, I assume it was just great to get confirmation from an outsider that they were working on the right stuff. But also, the challenge opportunity of this in between that we're trying to go after is that the infrastructure of the RV industry, the way most but not all dealers operate, and the type of, I'm going to make very high level, I hope not offensive comments about RV dealers, but most of them are selling products. A few of them sell a lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And yes, of course, RV is a lifestyle, but most of their businesses are sort of volume-ish, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And some people who are our first dealers are like, they only carry small things, and they're only carry small things that boondock in an excellent fashion and are not delicate. And so that, relative to the RV industry, we are very outdoorsy. Relative to the now booming, but sort of in dollars, small overlanding industry, like, that is confirmation of this Venn diagram that I always talk about. So we are trying to position ourselves in the middle there, which means in an exciting way, it's like we need to reach our end customers, because our end customers tend not to have gone to RV shows, because that's not what they're thinking. They know that a house on wheels isn't for them, even though they want everything that's in a house on wheels. It's a comfortable bed and a place to get out of the weather and cook and change and wash. But after that, it's like, how many mountain bikes can I put on this thing? What if my muddy dog and my muddy boots and my muddy friends are going to have a beer after we just did this trail? That kind of thing. So that's cool. We like to think we are perfecting the sort of triangular relationship of our end customers and the how distribution and sales and support work, and educating our dealers and working with them so that the messaging and branding and really ultimately the description of lifestyles and how they fit into this equipment we're designing fits. Because it's more obvious if you look at the interiors of our habitats. If you walk into a white box RV, it's like, oh, this is like a hotel room. I know exactly. You might not know how to empty a tank or something, but it's like, I get this. My dishes go up here. This goes like that. And I have a door on my bathroom and stuff like that. And a little bit, we have like useful ceilings and useful walls that are places to attach things, places to lean against, places to keep the weather in. Our ceilings have holes all over them to attach bungee nets and tie your fishing rod up to the ceiling, or get a kid's berth and hang them from the ceiling. Just save room. So walking into an empty, unstyled Cricut is a big mystery for some people.
Mm-hmm.
They may think it's cool, but they're like, I don't quite get that. And then in our more bootstrap days, it's like, I want to have 6 photo shoots just for the Cricut, and I want to outfit one for a hunter and one for a family and one for a photographer and one for a whatever. Just because even though Cricuts are like highly styled or engineered, like they're very distinctive looking,
yes,
but it's all for a purpose. But we really did think about like, what's a 20-year-old want and what's a 70-year-old want, and what's everything in between that. And that's where it gets into describing the products as equipment, because it's like all of us have the equipment that we want to bring with us, and how do you pull that stuff out of your garage and throw it in a thing and run off? That's my not very advanced planning camping method generally.
And so I like that you call it a habitat instead of an RV or a travel trailer or something like that, because there is a definite difference between what you're manufacturing and what people think of as either a travel trailer or an RV.
Mm-hmm.
There's a definite difference. And I'm glad you mentioned photographer, because when I went on your website and watched all your product videos, I thought of a nature photographer working out of the Cricut, for example, as a perfect way to get way back in the country and, just have a place to crash while they're out, when they come back from shooting all day. So, yeah.
And retrospectively, since I can't give you like a percentage number of how many people take photography seriously who own our products, but it's a good percent. And that's a fantastic, genius social media thing, because people send us amazing, cute pictures of their kids looking out windows at whatever, a bear. And you're like, this is perfect. Like it makes me want to cry in a middle-aged way. Like that first paragraph of my business plan, it came true.
Where does the name TAXA come from?
TAXA, you may remember from 9th or 10th grade biology, the word taxonomy, which is the classification of plants and species in a science way. Oh. And again, if I'm triggering memories and I can't do it right, it's kingdom, phylum, genus, order, species, something. It's all the Latin words. And I was starting an outdoor company and I like words, and it's like, this is TAXA short. It's the root word of taxonomy, and any product I design, I can name after something in the outdoors.
Oh, so that's how Cricut.
Yeah. And then I started with Cricut, and then all of a sudden, I never intended to be insect focused.
Okay.
but there was peer pressure after Cricut to come back with the next insect. And choosing an insect name is funny, because it's like mosquito, or will like mosquitoes biting people be a bad connotation? And I don't know if Mantis has the whole the female mantis eating the male mantis's head after sex thing. So it's a little scary maybe for kids, but finding friendly insects. And again, I'm a designer. I want the company to grow into other sorts of habitats too, or other products, because again, that design is my passion, and fitting people and getting them outside. So if I design a folding camp table or something, maybe other categories will be like a fox and a trout and a bird. But right now we are insects.
Insects, okay. Who do you find as your first-time buyers? Is it people that, like you had mentioned, is it the backpackers that are looking to get maybe
Yeah, it's changing all the time. And I have this historical view of introducing a new product every few years. So in a general way, the 4 products we have are a family. So the Mantis is the biggest, and it sleeps 4 adult-sized people, which means generally we think that's a couple with 2 teenagers.
Okay.
We're agnostic about who you are, but that was the idea. And a cricket is 2 adults and 2 kids, and a tiger moth is 2 adults, and a woolly bear is not even technically an RV. It's a cargo trailer that can be outfitted in a lot of ways, but we usually sell it with a rooftop tent. And so they're all gradations of comfortable camping. We try to put the stuff that allows a camping adventure in there and not everything a house on wheels would be. So people, it's like some of these are too small to put a lot of kayaks on. Some of them are just right to put kayaks on. Some of them, yes. So former and current outdoorsy people. So empty nesters who, I have so many stories. Empty nesters who dated by camping when they were in college or whatever, and their kids just went off to college and they want to get back out there, but not on the ground anymore. That's sort of the 50 to 65-year-old set. The younger set, I should know the name for this demographic, but people who married at 35 or 40 and have 5-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
Again, so they've been serious rock climbers or whatever, and now they want a base camp that really makes, so they're really warm, so they can change a diaper, so it's some safety and security aspect. Yeah, there's some level of like gearhead equipment that considers us as gear that augments their base camp adventure. We do get some people who've had other RVs who change to us, but I would say, and again, I should know this, but I try to design and not be heavily marketing and sales. I would say 70% of our buyers have never towed a trailer before.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Again, because they have actively not wanted a house on wheels, and they either don't know yet about overlanding, or they fancy themselves as overlanders but want just a touch more interior space, again, for those reasons. Whether, in Texas, that means tarantulas and scorpions and snakes, maybe in Colorado, that's a bear, just things like that. So that's interesting to me. I haven't split it up, but and I don't know, it's kind of a different topic. I'm fascinated now by how different states have cultures and cities, which is of course true, and it goes along with like land use in that state. The lowest hanging fruit for us starting out were all the Rockies states, where you're allowed to camp on any dirt road. There's just a ton of BLM and Forest Service roads where you can, so within a half hour of Denver, you can be on a road and say, I'm going to drive a mile and camp, or I'm going to drive 30 miles and camp. So we excel at boondocking. And again, that comes from our intent of selling camping machines. And I suppose I should try to say something philosophical about camping. I really believe that camping is about doing something different. Like you leave your home behind. You make your coffee differently. You sit on the ground and you're not worried about getting your pants wet. You burn your fingers on the campfire, and that's the best. And then you go home and you think, oh my God, a shower feels so great, or whatever. And then I don't know if you guys grew up reading Calvin and Hobbes, stuff like that. It's literally true, if you remember all the camping versions of those things, that certain types of bad experiences are the best memories.
Yeah,
that is true.
That is true.
And it's sort of funny, although alarming in a marketing way, that enough of those are about camping that that it's funny. So I'm trying to sell the right kind of pain in the ass, which means all this, like you're making a campfire, you're eating a hot dog that may have just fell on the ground because you don't have another one. I don't care. I try to cook gourmet meals too. I'm a foodie at the same time, but just the common experience of everyone jumping into a new environment is what I think of camping. Again, that leads us, if you are at a campground, like I don't care if you watch a movie, for instance, but why don't you watch it on your phone instead of me trying to sell you a big flat screen TV?
Yeah.
And in my mind, that means that most of our customers do go more than a mile or two up a trail. They're not just there to look at the postcard view. Nothing against that. I do that too. Or I do that after the trail. I sit and want to just look at that from my campground. But that's the design intent, was to occupy a different set of space than most of the RVs out there.
And so you do have a very unique design, so to speak, with the exposed structures, a lot of hooks for D-rings to hang hammocks, for example. How did working with NASA affect that design that you created for your habitats?
A lot. It affected that a lot. But even before that, when I was in graduate school for architecture, I spent a lot of time folding paper. So when I was originally setting out to design, I thought I should choose a method that's, the latest in technology and CNC laser cutting and routing and stuff like that. But that lets me have a lot of freedom within one sort of system of folded panels to make any shape I want. That is, aerodynamic, but aerodynamic like a stealth bomber rather than the super sleek curvy. In a less practical way, I've never really worked with fiberglass, but I was really thinking, like, how do we use technology and the great vendors that are in and around the Houston area, because of there's a lot of great shops around here that have high-tech stuff for the oil and energy industry. And that really, using them helped me get into business. The exoskeleton, endoskeleton, I could make up a story that was inspired by insects, and I probably should, but really it was like, what system of construction will let me develop more shapes and make tweaks as I go along?
Okay.
It's also taken me a while to become an excellent manufacturer, so sometimes I've cursed myself over time about that, but that's how it started.
Yeah, and it's such a unique design that it probably was difficult to manufacture that first vehicle. I imagine there were some challenges in that, because some of the stuff that you're doing, I haven't seen on any other type of trailer.
Yeah, I of course have funny war stories about the first ever Cricket that left my first ever garage. Start off, the wheel fell off a few hundred yards away because the guy I was working with, for some reason, loosened all my lug nuts the night before.
Wow.
It was not sabotage, and the wheel fell off in the street and was headed towards the sidewalk in a hardware store. And it's like, in my mind, it was all a flash of putting on my hazards, jumping out of the car, trying to chase this wheel that slammed into a hardware store and a wheelbarrow and dented the wheelbarrow. And I bought the wheelbarrow and threw it in the car with my tire, put my wheel back on and drove away. And in my mind, it all took like 20 seconds of this life in slow motion. Like, this is a really bad omen, but it wasn't. I was advised not to put that on my Facebook page at the time.
That's probably good advice.
Wheel falls off. You probably don't know this, but if you build a prototype trailer of your own, you have to take it to a police station so they can verify that you didn't steal it or you're not making it out of other people's parts and stuff like that. So that's what the trip was too, but I should have gold plated that dented wheelbarrow and hang it from the ceiling. But really, I found it so embarrassing for so many years that I saved it, but then I finally threw it out.
So you made it sound like you started out in a garage, just your own personal garage?
Well, I had a little architecture office and the space next to me was empty. And so for the first few years of thinking and designing, it really was, the next space over was, I was taking all my architecture earnings and building different versions of prototypes and building, we design at full scale as quickly as we can. Something I learned at NASA, that if you're trying to be a small space, you really want to get people inside the space as soon as possible. So in addition to doing metal stuff, I built full-scale cardboard mock-ups of the first Cricket.
Oh, cool.
And then I put the coffee machine in the office inside it, so that we all had to go in and out. We had to pass each other in doorways, and the different size of us would have to sit at the little table and see if it worked, because in a weird way that architects don't know, I'm jumping all over the place. I don't know if it's confusing. Architects know a lot as they learn to design, but the smallest literal space you have to know is that a wheelchair accessible doorway is 36 inches wide.
Okay.
And that explains lots of clearances everywhere in your life, but also even the space that an oven door needs to open in front of the oven. But once you are able to go slightly smaller than that, all of a sudden, like 20 inches is much different than 21 inches.
Mm.
If you have like 3 bags of groceries and you're trying to go up a step and turn a corner, it's like that. The table you're going to run your hip into shouldn't have a 90-degree corner. It should be rounded. And if you could taper it a little bit, maybe all of a sudden, just the choreography and how people move in this space is what you end up designing. And I think you have to do that by doing it, and sometimes injuring yourself and hitting your head on things and, knocking your hip into things. And when I was a professor, I would make my students do silly experiments like that. Like, let's make the smallest doorway possible. And now you have to carry 6 things through it. And now you have to run through it. You'd like try running through it, 2 of you from opposite directions, and see how big do you think, how do you a door needs to be? So the design process is very much like that. Let's build one that's terrible and start running people through it and let the people's actions define how the shape turns out.
So from first pen to paper to driving to that show in Salt Lake City, what was the time?
Oh, 2.5 years.
Oh, that's that's pretty quick actually.
Yeah, I mean, I had enough confidence that it wouldn't fall apart on the way there and back. I was a little worried because I went to that outdoor retailer has a show in the wintertime and the summer. So I was driving through Wyoming in the winter in a trailer thinking, how bad could this be for me?
When you arrived at the show, and that was it called a Cricket at that time?
It was, yeah.
So was that your one and only Cricket, or did you build a few and you were bringing that one as a show and like a demo?
Yeah, that was number 2 or number 3. Number 1, in any good prototyping process, you should have broken number 1.
Okay.
By testing it. So I broke number 1 really fast. Number 2 took much longer to break. I think that was number 3.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
And it's funny, the first time I saw a Cricket at a show, I looked at it and then I looked at the name, and you kind of mentioned this earlier, but I guess it's not true. And the fact that I looked at it, I was like, yeah, I could see it. It looks like a Cricket, but I guess it really doesn't. But the name seems to fit the shape.
Yes. Well, I can describe everything in the trailer in a sort of performance way, but I'm also a designer, and it's not accident that some windows look like eyeballs. It's not an accident. Our graphics over the years have been influenced by like Cricket wing camouflage patterns, just to make, we're small relative to the competition, but even that you can break up outlines and make it seem smaller or more recessive. Part of that was the insect inspiration, but part of that is that I've always wanted, once our trailers are at a campground, I don't want it to be like so obvious. I want it to be part like, it's like there's a cricket, like, or there's an elk. It's like it's a totally big animal.
Yeah.
But it's not screaming out at you to pay attention. So when I first started out, we made our trailers in 2 different colors, and it was red and green. And the press would always mention how we were bright. Everything else was white, and we were green. Oh, green and blue. Sorry. But really, I was like, if you're camping in a forest, like green and blue just sort of blend in with the sky you see through the tree canopy or the green of the leaves. And it was really trying to be not camouflage, but natural. But sure, I love that I can make our trailers look a little bit like bugs and creatures. And I think, I don't know how many people own their RVs. You might know. Sorry, I don't know how many people name their RVs when they have one.
A lot.
Okay. All right. So that's certainly true with our habitats too.
Okay.
And they seem to be people names more than insect names, whatever. I don't know what you name an insect after. Again, I like I love getting out in the wilderness. I don't love driving past huge white boxes on the highway. I mean, the people inside them love them, and I don't know if you could own a 5th wheel for all I know. And it's great for doing what people do with 5th wheels. That's not what I want to do. But the graphics on those sort of Nike swooshes all over everything.
Yeah.
I don't really know why everyone in Elkhart seems to hire the same graphic designer, is one question. And I presume they're there to break up the big white panel a bit. Or my more cynical thought is that they're like the stickers you put on big windows so that birds don't fly right into your trailer.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Maybe.
So yeah, I'm trying to be part of the ecosystem. Again, a lot of the NASA thinking to help design our trailers, in that it's not just the thing you're doing, it's the system of use and the infrastructure that the state's parks have for where you're going, and what the sort of infrastructure of boondocking is versus a full service campground, and how to design for all those things and give our particular sort of weight and concentration to not being tied to that infrastructure.
And did you have towing in mind when you first designed these? Because it looks like many of your models can be towed with a Jeep.
Yes, again, so more of those systems. Before I even answer towing, it's like all our products, you may ask me about overland crickets, which might be an exception. They're designed to fit in a garage. You might not want it in your garage, but we're trying to design away the monthly storage fee that many people have to pay. And a Mantis just barely fits into a typical garage, but if you wanted to, it could. So that's just another system. Yeah, all our trailers are designed to sort of weight goals. We could be super high-tech carbon fiber everything and just like, what is the most expensive, but what is the lightest trailer you could design? That's not really the point. If you make a big spreadsheet of every vehicle's tow capacities, there are a number of magic weights that pop out relative to what is expecting to tow things. And so the four-cylinder things that tow things are like 1,500 pounds or less. The biggest exception is like a Subaru Outback, which I think is currently 2,400 pounds. And there's a few in the sort of 2,400, 2,200 pounds. And then the next magic weight is 3,500 pounds, which is like every minivan plus a lot of the sort of smaller mid-size SUVs. And then after that, it jumps to 5,000-ish. And if I had brought that spreadsheet, I could show you. It's really a graph. It's like if you're selling a trailer that wants to be towed that weighs 1,100 pounds, there are 8 vehicles that your customers are going to own. If, once you get up to 3,500, it's like there are 40 vehicles. And at 5,000, it's, 30. And it's all the bigger SUVs. So it's really designing to a target that allows people. We like to think that we've designed the tow vehicle purchase away from this lifestyle choice as much as we can. Like, as much as we can, we like to say, you probably already own your car. Like, if you already own a big SUV, then you're more likely to be wanting a Mantis anyway. And so that works perfectly for that. You can certainly tow a Cricket. It's sort of a logic and a figuring out the system of what. So that determines our GVWRs and our dry weights of our trailers.
Okay.
And it determines many of our dealers. Many of our dealers know who a TAXA customer is before they even get out of the car. It's like, oh, it's one of these cars, and they're getting out and they're wearing one of these brands of clothing. Like, we know right where to take them, which is cool.
Yeah.
You have 4 models, and you had mentioned the Cricket has the Overland Edition. What is different with the Overland Edition compared to the standard Cricket?
It's the same body size and shape. It's largely suspension. So we switched to a Timbren suspension. Are you familiar with Timbrens?
No,
I am not, Sean.
Timbren is it's an independent axle-less suspension. So it comes in 2 pieces that bolt on either side of your chassis. So it eliminates the crossbar, or it raises the crossbar. So you get another 3 or 4 inches that way. And plus they come, so you get that ground clearance, plus there's a 4-inch lift on that suspension.
Wow.
Okay.
So, even further down a dirt road, or your definition of dirt road expands.
Yeah.
Although this is sort of on another side. The definition in different people's minds of what dirt road means varies a lot with the driver, and even with the state you're in. Like, how rutted is that road going to be? How dangerous? So I have the caveat is like, it's up to you. If you're going on an extreme road, be really careful, and it's not a mindless adventure. the way driving on a highway is, or getting even to most state parks.
I saw that you have a wireless brake controller on your trailers, and I've never seen a wireless brake controller before. Is that something that you specifically looked for? Did you guys design that? How did you find that product?
No, that is not our product. That's made by a company called Auto Brake. And our desire to start including it on our habitats comes from what I was just saying, that if you already own your tow vehicle, having a wireless brake controller means that you don't need to have a 7-pin hitch set up. You don't need to put a proportional brake controller under your knee up at the driver's seat. So to make it even easier to, again, hope that they already own their tow vehicle. If you own a bigger SUV or truck that has a brake controller built in, it just bypasses what we've installed. But it's part of the trying to pre-think the logic. It's like, hey, if you don't want people mucking around in your engine and running a wire through, you can avoid it with this product.
So is that standard, or is that an option that you offer?
No, that's standard on our 3. The 3. The woolly bear is always an exception, and it's an exception in a regulatory sense too. Because the bigger 3 you can get inside, they are legally vehicles or RVs. The woolly bear is just a cargo trailer, so it's also light enough that you don't need brakes, although we install brakes, but you don't need them in almost every state.
Okay.
Does that wireless brake controller have a display that you mount on your dash somewhere or something? How does it work?
The in-car part of it is like an extra key fob that hangs on your car keys. So it has the same sort of 3 buttons, an up and down proportion adjuster, and then a button if you want to fire the trailer brakes without yours. So it's really cool and great, and you forget about it instantly. And I don't know, all the 2 cars I own already have the other kind of brake controller in there because I've been doing this before we started speccing that.
Yeah.
So it's a cool addition, and hopefully we save someone a next headache of having to go to some hitch store and have people do that. We get good feedback about that.
That's a cool feature. So from the time that you built your first one, and now I know you're sitting in the 2021 Cricket, I think I'm allowed to say that.
Yes, you are.
As you're changing things out, maybe changing specs, adding something like this brake controller, how much of that is feedback from customer use? How much of that is just you guys scratching your head? How can we make things different or better or just more efficient?
Oh, it's both. It's both. Again, social media makes that inevitable that you get a lot of feedback.
Okay.
It makes it wonderful. We have a couple of users groups that it's less that we're a part of, but we monitor and jump in when we have to, that are fantastic. Our fans and our customers are our best advocates, but they're really inventive. And part of it is like suggestions for changing details of our units, and part of it is genius solutions about how, whatever, back to the professional photographer, where they hide their box or bolt it to the floor so that it can't get stolen, or just how they inhabit their habitat. And then, we're always on the lookout. It's what of course is not happening during COVID is that usually I would have gone to 2 or 3 rallies this summer. And so that's sort of ego gratifying and fun because I'm the designer and the founder of the company and people get to talk to me. But really I'm there as a design spy because everyone shows their trailers and shows like how they cook, what types of meals, and how whatever they use a hot pot to cook while they're driving, and super clever ideas. That it's not that we go back and design a hot pot, but it's like we had no idea that people were using these surfaces for that. Interaction and inspiration. And then, of course, like any manufacturer, we're always trying to make it easier for the guys on the factory floor to put things together and not curse out the designers, which they do. It's awkward that I'm the CEO and the designer.
Funny.
So mostly the curse words go to my junior guys, but no, I mean, continuous improvement is the name of the game, always, for customers, of course, first, but for us, for fun, for evolution. So even though a Cricket, like we really went into real production in 2014, That's when I would have said I had a factory. They're quite similar, but since everything is laser cut and in a CAD program, there's a million tweaks that you don't really notice as what rivet spacing changes, and that's all about tool clearance for the guys, or how we've adjusted the cabinetry and the wiring of the cabinetry so that the guys spend less time inside the trailers and more time in the easy, more ergonomically friendly bench building world, stuff like that.
So you're sitting in that Cricut right now, and I'm assuming there's no lights on in there.
That is true.
And it's very bright. I don't know. The ceiling, or the whatever that's made of, seems to let a lot of light through.
Well, one of the big changes for 21 is that we have a new, on the outside, it's pretty bright orange, which is actually how we started out. That's a different story. And we're getting back to that. So we have this orange tent fabric. It's really cool. At nighttime, if there are lights on inside, it glows like a lantern on the outside, and it's quite beautiful. In the daytime, the sunlight coming through the orange, it's white. The fabric's white on the inside. It makes you look very healthy. I don't know if all like fine dining establishments have lighting that try to make their customers look really good. This orange on the outside, tent side, you don't have to compliment my complexion or anything, but generally,
you're looking good, Garrett.
Generally, the quality of light is quite great, and relative to our size, we have that mostly they're not open, but we have sort of twice as many or more windows than anything else our size, because we can put a lot of windows in the tent part, which is great for light and cross ventilation, and then we have the windows in our hard side. So it really, by intent, it's the perfect design that is the hybrid of like feeling like you're outside, but the comfort and security of inside. And I joke about people having their roof up so you can stand up and watching a bear running towards them, and you just pull down the roof and become hard-sided. And we haven't devised that as a test. We do other tests, but not bear tests.
You had mentioned that you've pre-COVID days that you would go to the shows and talk to customers and things like that. When I look at your line, immediately I think of like rock climbers, kayakers, mountain bikers. Have you ever met somebody that's using one of your products and said, hey, I never thought of our product being used in that sort of way?
Yes.
Okay. Could you give us an example? I'm putting you on the spot. I know. I'm sorry.
Do you want? I have lots of examples. Some of them are. One of them was super interesting, but it's mildly colorful. So no, from people who say, hey, like I am a serious astronomer. I have a telescope that is 5 feet long. How can I get that in there? And, I take my family out in the Rockies, and at 2 a.m, we're all up and we want to be warm. And we love that you have a red light on the inside so our pupils aren't dilating. And we love this. And can we trust your furnace to keep us warm? And I have customers who are archaeologists who are driving around the sort of wilderness of New Mexico looking for Native American astronomical observatory things. The really colorful one is I don't think he ever ended up getting one, but a scientist who was studying horse urine. So he wanted to drive around from different racetrack to different racetrack to figure out the effects of different veterinarian drugs or performance-enhancing drugs on thoroughbred horse racing. And could he put a bigger fridge in because he would have urine samples, and could he do this and that? It's like, oh my God, it's like, that is a very specialized customer, very specialized needs. Like, how do you do this? Very early on, I had this wonderful guy who was wheelchair bound, and he loved our trailers, Cricut, originally because we have really wide doors. And he discovered online that the seat of his wheelchair and the floor of our trailer was the same. And so when he went camping with his wife, he wouldn't even raise the roof, and he had all these handholds hanging from all our attach points on the ceiling, and would hoist himself around. And it was very much like working with an astronaut, talking with Dave and saying, hey, because he was like, hey, there's this handheld shower. How am I going to wash myself? I'll be on the floor like this and doing this. And how am I going to hoist myself over to here? And so I'm a designer. Those questions make me so happy because it is about fitting your life into our product. And it's not generic at all, even if even if you're just a family with 2 kids under 5, you are your family and your personalities and your psyches. So that's great. And I think I mentioned earlier, like just looking at our habitats, it's not necessarily easy to just picture that. So we try to take more and more pictures of different lifestyles. And even if we just show one way to outfit a ceiling, the customers can say, oh, for me, I can do better than that. And then ideally they tell us, it's like, oh, we didn't think of that. But it's also one reason we have habitat specialists, because again, what we're selling is just slightly to the side of the RV industry. So our habitat specialists are there because salespeople out of dealerships don't get into this depth, but it's like our guys are answering the phone. It's like, hey, like I really want to be solar powered. We go for 8 days. We're not just weekend people, but I have a 2-year-old and like a CPAP machine or something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, Ben and Kevin are like, hey, yeah, like I know this, I know people like that, or I know this story, or like they are habitat specialists. They use our products. And, Ben's a serious mountain biker and a serious runner. And he's like, I do it this way. Tell me if you're an ultra marathoner. You get different sales questions for our products, I think, more than the generic white box. I shouldn't say it that way. Than a white box where customers are often, it's like, does it have a microwave? Does it have a full size this? Does it have a that? We're kind of selling performance that is not a list of specs, but it's like you can go be all alone for 5 days before you're even worried about a battery running out and a solar panel. And yes, you can go do this, what you said. And yes, we have had customers go to the Arctic Circle, and our plumbing tanks aren't insulated, but so you're winter camping, but you're winter camping with a furnace and you're totally warm. It's just that we advise not using your plumbing system then.
Yeah.
So that's been very effective. We were doing that before COVID, but COVID made that even more important because no one was going to dealerships to ask these questions. And so that gives us, great insight into, more specifics about the people who are calling us and saying, figuring out whatever. The Mantis I described to you at the beginning was originally conceived of for 2 adults and 2 teenagers, but, now families call us and say, I just had a 3rd kid, or this, or what's going to happen, or, we're just a couple, but now we want to take our grandkids, but we don't really want to share the space with them. And it's like, oh, we can put a rooftop tent up there. It's like they have a fort and a treehouse, and it makes everyone happy. Or if you want them inside, here are ways to hang hammocks. We can get 2 more hammocks in there for 2 more people. In the way that we're designed to be multi-use, the habitat specialists and the desire to really talk to our customers and help them decide, are we for you, or are you a more house on wheels person? In which case, go look at these things relative to your size and price range. That's been fantastic for our customers too.
Garrett, going back to the gentleman that was in a wheelchair and was using, the ceiling and walls and everything to maneuver throughout the habitat, I would imagine this must be very adorable. Can you talk about some of the materials that you're using to build these then, that he was able to support his weight and maneuver inside?
Yeah, we do use durable materials. It's always about, the performance of the material, the durability, the insulation, the ability for us to manufacture. So you're always balancing all those things. But our exposed structure means that you can see it and you can gauge it. If you're trying to do a chin up on the door frame, you can, if you want to add a chin up bar on your door frame, you can see whether there's screw clearance, because we also love when people hack our products. Again, it's equipment. It's not supposed to be as cheap as possible. It's supposed to get the job done. And that means, we're not the cheapest thing out there. We're premium in that way, but we live up to that. I don't know if it's the best description. I used to always say that I think of our habitats as like a pair of blue jeans. They last forever, and they show their experience too. They wear in, they don't wear out, and that's what it is. Aluminum panels are great for forming and color, and the paint will never fade because of the paint we use. But don't throw rocks at them.
Yeah.
That's not smart. But if you do throw a rock at it or you bump into something, in my mind, it's not in all my customers' minds, but in my mind, it's like, that's your dent. That's when your kid missed the baseball and it's a story. And, when I was an architect too, I like things that record experience a little bit. Again, not by showing scars, but our cabinetry is not laminate with fiberboard, and it's solid plywood. And yeah, of course you can scratch plywood, but it's not going to break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that wear in, not wear out term. That's really good with the comparison to the jeans. I like that.
Yeah. And I mean, that's like whatever, owning a Jeep and being terrified the first trail ride you do that you might roll your first Jeep. But, in my mind, that the first scratch or the first confidence building thing that makes it yours is kind of a design philosophy across the board for me. It's like, this thing is yours. Yes, it's a product, but it was designed thinking of a lot of different ways to slot different people into it. When I first started out, I made a student write an essay for me about this. She was, and this, I'm going to sound very dated, back in the days of iPods as opposed to iPhones. It's like, everyone buys this beautiful object and then they put their own music in it and then it's theirs. It's no one else's iPod, and it's totally distinct. And I think that's since these habitats are containers for life, for the experiences you're having, that's what we really are trying to sell, is like, go out there and do something different and learn from it and think about it. So it's kind of like that. It's a product that you fit into, and you are you and not me.
And I like that you used the word hackable too, because when I watched your videos on your website, I was thinking I would hang something differently over here, or I would use those D-rings to do this with my stuff versus what you were showing in yours. So there's lots of opportunity for really creating a personal space from what you've designed. So you've really given a shell with lots of opportunity for making it yours.
Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah.
Because it is yours.
Before COVID or now or during COVID, I don't know, do you guys do factory tours? Can people come by and take a look and see how the product is being put together?
People do that.
Okay.
We don't quite advertise it. No, okay. I love giving tours, and we're open to that. We don't have a showroom per se. We are bursting out of our factory now and are heavy in planning to move to a much better space that will have a showroom. But yes, we welcome people here, and it's exciting and convincing. And the woolly bear, which is not an RV, we sell directly, so people often come pick it up here.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Again, it's great to. I mean, our RV dealers don't particularly want to sell it because it's our least expensive product, et cetera, and it's more an overlanding product, and very few RV dealers make that crossover. So yes, we give factory tours, but you want to schedule it.
Okay.
Again, so and our during COVID, our habitat specialists, that's one of their jobs, and whether it's saying, hey, let's do a FaceTime, I will walk outside right now and let's look at that space together. Cool. And I'll bring a tape measure and ask me to measure anything you want. Or people are passing through, or they are visiting their nephew and they make an appointment. So we welcome that, but don't just drop in. Make an appointment with a specialist.
Going back to the guts of the habitats real quick, I just had one question about power. Is mostly everything then 12 volt power, so you have a longer time between needing to charge, or how does the power work inside of these?
I would say it's just like any other RV, but a particularly emphasis on 12 volts. So okay. You need shore power to run an air conditioner. Most of our units are sold in places where that's not even an issue. People don't want an air conditioner. Mm-hmm. So that's virtually it, unless you need your coffee maker from home and you're going to a campground with a power outlet there.
Yeah.
No, so everything else is 12 volts. So we have a Truma Combi furnace hot water heater, if you're familiar with that.
Oh, yeah.
So propane fired hot water and heat, and, Dometic appliances. And the 12 volt stuff is lights and water pumps, and that The biggest power draw is if you decide you want a 12-volt refrigerator. And generally, it's that we provide space for 2 batteries in a loose way because it depends on so many things. With 1 battery, you're good for a weekend running a 12-volt fridge and everything else. With 2 batteries, you're like 4, 5, 6 days. And we're pre-wired for solar panels. So if you want to do that instead of the second battery, or ensure that you're doing something, or you have some other need that we don't even know about. I mean, solar panels are cool. I use them just because they're cool. It's not usually that I get to go camping for a week or more and need that extension. So, and we use LED lights. We are thinking about the power draw, but generally it's, charging a laptop or a phone, plus lights and a water pump and maybe a fridge.
Yep. Perfect. How can people find out what dealer is closest to them that carries one of these?
Our website is taxaoutdoors.com, and we have dealers up there. You type in your zip code and you'll find the nearest ones.
Okay.
COVID put a crimp in our ambassador program, where lots of our customers were happy to, if you weren't near a dealer, they would be happy to give you a tour of their product. But
that's cool.
But that got squished by COVID. We are all around the US and in Canada. I think we have about 30 dealer locations. So from British Columbia to, to Virginia.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
All around. I mean, we're always looking to augment that, because it's always a question of how far someone will drive to go kick a tire. But it's also amazing how many people will buy a premium product without ever having seen it in real life.
Yep.
Yeah.
But for the first years of my company, it was always an open question. It's like, how many do we have to have made so that people don't just see them in an article or on our website, but have some peripheral vision confirmation that they're real? So we're well past that, and that's some tipping point of exposure and peripheral knowledge, and it's fun for me when I do get to go to a rally or whatever, and I stop somewhere and I see a product and I leave a note on their windshield that it might scare them. And it's like, Garrett was here. I designed this thing. I don't know which person you are in the restroom line, but hello. So that's really fun and gratifying. And I grew up on the East Coast. Friends on the East Coast all of a sudden send me snapshots like, oh my God, I saw your product on the, it's like, even I believe it's real now. Yeah, I'm sure if I had gone to business school, there's a name for that, of marketplace exposure tipping into a different moment of confidence and ability to get product out there.
And so you worked at, you were an architect, you were a professor, you worked at NASA. You had just from listening to the conversation, it sounds like you didn't have a lot of business experience. What's been the hardest part in starting and running a company?
I like to think that architecture is a business, but it's a service industry, which is different than manufacturing.
Right.
For me, finding the right team is always right. I'm not the numbers person. I'm the designer person, and the one, at least at the start, with the biggest intuition about the market that wasn't being well served. Manufacturing is a real bear, and you can hire that more or less quickly. That's not how I was able to fund the business. So I'm much smarter now than I used to be. Getting the right means and methods of manufacturing and making sure you learn from all the stupid things you did. The examples I think of off the top of my head are pretty silly, but the first 20 crickets were all, we used caulk from Home Depot. And then you think, oh wow, like we applied that in 100-degree heat and 100-degree humidity in Houston, and now it's in the Rockies and it just froze, and that's the wrong caulk. Any manufacturing is all about constant improvement. Mm-hmm. But finding the team is always great. We have a great team right now. I don't know if you've talked to other people about this. Like, COVID has increased demand amazingly, and that means that's its own stress. That doesn't mean the supply chain in any way is caught up, or it's mostly caught up, but it has weird hiccups. And it's obviously a horrifying thing if a 50-cent part is preventing the shipping of a $30,000 product, something like that. And sometimes with some of our shortages that have never happened before, we we make cynical assumptions that the big players have reserved all the porta potties or something. It's like, oh my God, it's like, how could you run out of this? It's not even from somewhere far away. So every day there's some little emergency in a supply chain way. It's really exciting times. We are, I don't know, 40% bigger in our factory now. We had to rent an external parking lot. One of our departments is outside in a tent because the public demands it. You sort of feel like you're trying to take care of the public's sanity to get out of whatever city or house they've been stuck in for too long. I always remember the first thing before I started, I always used to sneer at like corporate slogans that were on meaningful posters in hallways. But this one guy said to me, it's not who you hire, it's who you fire. And that sounds sort of harsh, but looking back 10 years, almost every time when I was really stressed about someone not working out, it's gotten so much better afterwards because the company knew how to articulate what they needed so much better, but also just getting the right fit and the right people that are working as a team instead of running at odds. I don't know.
I've never heard that before. It's not who you hire, it's who you fire, but it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of people who can be right. There's some people who are not right. It's not often even a problem of their own. They're just not right. It's fun to finally be able to get more people who actually, it's not just a job, but they live the lifestyle too. It's possible that would have been easier or faster if I had happened to start the company in Denver or something like that.
Yeah.
But I was here with NASA, and that's where the astronauts were, and this is where it's happening. I mean, if COVID hadn't happened, we had so many more outreach plans, like field marketing, experience marketing, that were going to be really exciting. Because again, we have the rallies where 25 or 30 of our customers get together and we can go interact, but also just partnerships with other brands to get things on the road and seen in the national park, not in a showroom, which is really where our best marketing is. So relative to that, social media and Instagram is the best way to spread the most concise definition of our lifestyle without even having to talk to people. We have influencers out with products who pay us with their photographs, and they get to use our product, and that's the most effective way. And it obviously helps anyone who's looking for a job here to tweak their resume or their conversation to say, hey, I'm a fisherman. I have ideas about this. It's not just that I want to work in this department.
Right.
So we're interested in that bottom part of the CV that says your extracurricular interests or what languages you speak and stuff like that. It's not just management and accomplishments. It's like, hey, there is a culture here.
And I know we're taking up a lot of your time, but I'd like to talk a little bit about the woolly bear as well, because it's so different than the cricket and the mantis. How did the woolly bear model come up? Like, how did you decide, we need something that's we're already different, but now I want to go even more different than everybody else. How did that idea happen? And can you tell us a little bit about the woolly bear and how it is different than, because it's not something that you technically would sleep in or live in, but if you could just talk a little bit about it.
Sure. So the woolly bear is our cargo trailer that can have a rooftop tent on it. So in that way, it's inspired by my experiences over the years with overlanders, people who have crazy cargo trailers with air suspensions and sort of mil spec stuff. That word has gotten much more common and cheaper. But 10 years ago, that was really like, let's drive to the tip of South America together. And this is an expedition we're going on. It's not a trip. Thinking about our family of products and thinking about how our channel opportunities, the three bigger units are legally RVs in a legal sense that limits how you can sell them, but particularly ironically in Texas, where Tesla lost its lawsuits about alternate ways of setting up dealerships. So this was a test piece where we're both, it's like a starter unit for people who are backpackers but can't quite handle the idea of something that's closer to an RV. And it's my looking at most of these overlanding trailers and saying, they are great, but mostly once this thing is there, you haven't optimized the field kitchen experience. So what's a chuck wagon with a cargo trailer? And then thinking, when I first designed it, was this sort of a few years before it actually came out. It's like, how will an REI want to use this, sell this? Could we get an outdoor industry store to use this as a store fixture, and they can style their camping stoves or pile sweaters on top of it? We didn't care, and have that be our exposure mechanism to spread the brand idea and be able to, in some way, closer to drop ship it straight to a customer. Does that make sense? So
Yeah, that makes
we do
sense.
sell it direct. We're always, we are still interested in augmenting the exposure mechanism of it. So it's not just on our website and Instagram, but is where can we place it and work out relationships with that arm of the marketing thing. So it was on purpose to develop a different channel, but also to be at the most junior end of the family of products and the ranges of comfortable camping that you have. Because I described our 4 products in terms of the people that fit in and around them, but I could have also have said, like, you are most outside with the woolly bear. With a tiger moth, you sleep and sit inside. An outside kitchen. With a cricket, you cook inside. And there's sort of gradations of who you are, where you expect to camp, or the options you want to preserve relative to, like, most people in crickets also cook outside, but when it's raining, they can go right inside. And in a tiger moth, you're still outside. Like, what is comfortable camping? And how do we draw that, and where do we draw the lines between our products, but also between where overlanders or where RVs are pushing in at the edges of our diagram? So a practical response. And again, if I told you about what I want, and I am the CEO, so I sort of get to decide, but not really. What the design department wants to do is, smaller things that fit on shelves at stores, but an even smaller woolly bear, other ways to figure out specialized versions of woolly bears, maybe would be a way to say it. I mean, in Texas, there are all these portable barbecues. Like, how do we, could we invent the woolly bar, where you could have the bar that rolled out of the restaurant into your parking lot for the outside bar? What kind of enterprise solutions can we invent for our products?
Yeah.
Okay.
That seems always more genius. And again, another reason we use the word habitat that becomes particularly obvious with COVID is, like, how do you use this thing at home? Like, what is it in your backyard? Is it like a tree house? Is it a office because you and your spouse really don't enjoy occupying the same space? Is it a guest room? Is it a quarantine thing if you want your mother-in-law close by who just had it and came out of the hospital?
Yeah.
So we really do think of it as a habitat. And when we think of the future of habitats that don't have wheels, what can those kinds of habitats do?
You guys really are filling the niche of people that, like you said, don't want to sleep on the ground, but don't want a home on wheels. It's really an outdoor experience. And my favorite is the tiger moth, by the way. I like that one.
I actually like this woolly bear a whole lot. When I saw it, I thought, I'm glad we got to talk about it a little bit, because I think it's a very smart design. I like how it has the drawer for the cooler, that the cooler goes inside. It has the outdoor kitchen built in. It's got space for your bikes, kayak. You could put bikes and kayak on it. I think it's a really smart design. I really like the small footprint of it, and that I would imagine it's probably pretty light, that almost anything could tow it too. Like, I looked at this, I said, I've never seen anything like this. I really like the woolly bear. It's my favorite.
It's my favorite right now too, though I probably shouldn't say that as the parent of all these things. Yeah, it's my favorite. There are more and more overlanding trailers that are not mil spec that are coming on the market. And that's exciting too. We're still quite different. And I've mentioned this, how I always want to take 6 photo shoots of our product. The woolly bear, we keep illustrating in one way, but that cargo deck on top, you can not have a tent. You could get 10 bikes on there if you were like a day use bike team. You could put the tent up high or down low. You could, run rivers, again, not bring a tent and put bigger crossbars on and get a lot of kayaks up there. But it's hard to illustrate that succinctly. That's because it really is a multi-configurable cargo trailer.
Yeah, it looks very versatile.
Yep. Thank you.
So we will definitely put a link to all of your website and to your social media sites so people can go in and see how configurable these habitats really are. And they're really, you can almost do anything you want inside of one of those to make it yours. So we'll definitely put links in our show notes so people can go check that out.
That will be greatly appreciated. I've really enjoyed talking with you guys, and we'll start listening to your podcast. It's also funny, it's an aside, but starting out TAXA, I did a lot of driving around the country in a guerrilla marketing way, but that's when I addicted myself to various podcasts.
We'll be glad to have you as a new listener.
Yes. Cool. All right. Well, again, thanks so much.
Thank you, Garrett. We really appreciate you coming out and taking the time to talk with us and telling us all about TAXA and what you guys are up to. It's very unique design, and I encourage everybody to check out the show notes, and we'll have some photos of all your different models. And we'll, like Sean said, we'll have some links that they can get right to your website and learn even more about you.
All right. Take care, you guys.
Thanks to Garrett for coming on and talking about TAXA's unique habitats. Be sure to check out the show notes and TAXA's website to see all of their products. Also, go to our YouTube channel for clips from this interview, which took place inside the 2021 Cricket. Lastly, we are now on Pandora and Amazon Music. A big thanks to our sponsor, Battleborn Batteries. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
This episode is brought to you by Battleborn Batteries, the best name in the RV and marine industry. These lithium batteries are designed and assembled in the USA, backed by a 10-year warranty. The best solution for your battery anxiety. So go check them out at battlebornbatteries.com.